Hello guys and welcome to my channel. My name is Jesper and today we are going to talk about a deodorant. We are going to talk about this one here called the PitROK. And you might have seen it sitting on the shelf in the grocery store and thought about if you should try it or not try it. I have used this for the last, I think, 4 or 5 years now. And the reason I started using it was that I used to sweat in a way that it annoyed me. So when I was on my own, it was not a problem. But if I was out and about, it really was a problem. I suffered from having thoughts about people looking at me all the time, and obviously for all the wrong reasons and all that sort of ideas that you get in your head. And at one point it was so bad that I was in Fort Mason, and I just had to go out and then just go home because I couldn't stand being there. I just felt people were staring at me, and obviously they were not, and people were more likely looking at everyone else or whatever, and hardly anyone looked at me. But I just felt it was overwhelming, and in such a situation I would be sweating a lot, and it really annoyed me, and it made the situation much worse. So the feeling that you are sweating and you are using the normal antiperspirants and deodorants and stuff like that, and it just feels like a nasty smear underneath your arms, and sometimes you have this sort of a cooling effect from some sort of a peppermint or whatever that are in the product, and it really grossed me out really. And I thought I needed to find something that could help me not sweat that much. So I started various things, and at one point I was drinking a lot of sage tea because that was supposed to help with that. And I would say that, or I will say that it did actually help a little bit, but I don't drink sage tea anymore. Because what happened was that I found this product here, and it helped me in the sense that when I was sweating, I did not get this sort of unpleasantness underneath my arms, because I knew that I would not be smelling. I never had an issue that I thought I was smelly or anything like that, but it's just like when you are sweating a lot, it's really uncomfortable. So this stuff here, it helped me in the sense that you are still sweating because it is a deodorant. But when you are having the feeling that it is just kind of like water underneath your arms, you know that it will just evaporate or it will sink into your skin again. It will go away, and that will be it. But if you are kind of like, or in my situation, when I was using an antiperspirant, or I was using a deodorant, or I was using at one point I used one of these ones that are really blocking your sweat glands, and it didn't help. It just poured out of my sweat glands anyway. And the thing is that when it does that, it cannot get back in, because where you have put the antiperspirant on, or any other sort of a product that are stopping you from sweating, or is supposed to stop you from sweating, then the water in that area cannot get back in. So it will just be kind of like a smear until it has evaporated. So when you are using a product like this, you will still be sweating, but the sweat can now sink back into your skin, and it can also evaporate from your skin and from your clothing. So in that sense, it was for me liberating to know that it was just kind of like basically water that would evaporate, and then it would be done with, where before it was an awful chemical smear underneath my arms, and it would also stain the fabric as well. So that side of it really helped me, so I did not have this sort of unpleasantness when I was out and about. And for the stuff about people looking at me, or me thinking that people were looking at me or stuff like that, I just thought, well, if they're looking at me, let them look. I can't do anything about it, and most likely they don't like me, and nobody likes me anyway, so I can just go and do whatever I want. And therefore I ended up on YouTube. So yeah, there you go. So the thing is, when you are using a product like this, so a crystal, then they call it a natural crystal, and it will help you with the odors, but there are issues with it, because when you are using it, you might before have used an antiperspirant, so you're not used to having this sort of wet feeling underneath your arms. When you are sweating, it's not like you're wet all day long, but when you are sweating, you will be wet. So that is how a deodorant is working compared to an antiperspirant. So if you're not used to having that sort of a wet feeling, what can happen, and what I think is happening when people are showing online that they had a rash underneath their arms and stuff like that, is that there is something called intertrigo or chafing, and that means that when your skin is wet and it is moving up against itself or each other, like which maybe most people know it from their thighs in the summer. If they are touching, then you get an awful feeling inside, on the inside of the thighs, and it's really unbearable. It's just kind of like, I can't walk any longer today. So that is kind of the same issue that happens underneath your arms, and that is why you are getting, or may be getting, a red mark underneath your arms. If you are seeing online, people are showing pictures of how it looks. Usually they will have a sort of a ring around their armpit, but in the middle of the armpit there will not be an issue, and that is because in the middle of the armpit the skin will not, won't be any sort of a friction there. It will be more on the outskirts, and that's why you get this sort of red ring around when you are looking at an armpit that has this sort of a problem. So that is one thing to keep in mind, that you might have that sort of a issue. So another thing that can happen is that when the skin is damaged from something like that, then it is vulnerable, and there might be a yeast infection starting to occur, and that will be really itchy. So anyone who have had a sort of a yeast infection anywhere on the body will know that it itches rather a lot, and that is what can happen as well. So one of the other things that can happen, and some people are complaining about, is that they feel that they get a sort of a dark patch underneath in their armpit or underneath their arm. And what could be happening is that when you are tanning a hide, then you are using alum, and this product here, when you look at the back, it says up here, it contains ammonium alum, and alum is used to tan hides. So what can happen is that the outer layer of your skin will be basically tanned. So that is what can result in a darker color, and there might be some skin types or skin colors where that is more visible. So that is one of those things that can happen, and you can read about when the people are saying why they are not using a product like that, or other people say they've never had an issue and they adore the product and have used it since they can remember. So that is some of the issues there can be. So how should you use it? Well, there will be some people saying that you just need a little bit of water, and then you just go and smear and smear and smear and smear, and you might get a little bit red, but that's okay, and so on. I don't feel that you need a little water with this product, and then you just go and smear until you become red, and it will go away afterwards. No, I would say that is not the way to go about it. But the thing is, if you're using way too much water, then the product most likely will not help, because then you would just be swirling or gliding it around on your body, and it will not really dissolve in the way it should, in a sort of a concentration that is necessary in order to keep those bacteria under control that are causing the odor, because sweat in itself does not have any sort of odor, or it shouldn't have. And what happens when you start to stink is that the bacteria, they will transform the sweat into something stinky stuff. So what you do is that when you have had a bath and you are still kind of like wet underneath your arms, you can use it straight away. Or if you have dried yourself, you just take a bit of water. What I do is that I dry myself, and then I take my hand and just wet it underneath my arms, and then I'm wetting this one as well, and then I just go around in circles like that for maybe like 30 times or something like that, and then a bit up and down, and then I just take my arm like that back and forth to really take it around that whole area, because it might not be that you're only becoming smelly underneath your arm, just like straight in the armpit, but that you are being smelly in the area around it as well. So you would like to have this sort of stuff, this salt going around that area as well. So if you just go up and down kind of like 13 times, 30 times, and then back and forth a bit like that, and then let it dry, then you are good. You can if you must, you can just use it again the next day without having a shower, and just a bit of water and then on, and it will be fine. It will not start to stink that day either. But if you continue that process, well, you need to wash, because then it will start to create a bit of an odor that is difficult to get off. Anyway, that is some sort of a trucker washing, I think. So that is one thing that people are saying, that they are using too little, because they are kind of like just giving one swipe and then they think that's enough, and then it will start to stink during the day or create an odor, a BO, body odor. And that is not the way to do it. You need to go a lot in with it, and back and forth, not too wet and not too dry. So one thing in general, when you are talking about body odor or odor from the armpit, is that if you are having hair in your armpit, if you are not shaving, then you might smell a little bit more, because the odor simply just lingers in the hairs. So if you are shaving, then it might be easier to keep the odors away. But that is kind of like yeah, it's a thing if you want to do that, or if you don't want to do it. Well, I personally do it, because I think it's much easier to use this one here to go in with it, than if you have a lot of a bush going on. So, but that is a personal thing, and it is just, I find it to be easier to use when in respect of the odors. So this is what I have been using for the last 4 or 5 years or something like that, and it lasts rather a long time. I think over those 4 or 5 years I've had maybe 4. And I think one of them was because I dropped it on the floor, and then it breaks, and then you can't use it, or it will hurt rather a lot if you do that. So you shouldn't really do that. You might be in an emergency situation where it just broke and you don't have anything else, and then yeah, be careful. So another thing is that this one is a new one. So you just kind of like push it up like that. So if you take it out, then you will see that in here, oopsie-daisy, there is, you can see it on this one as well. There is much easier to see on this one here actually. There is this small thing in here, so it just goes in like that, and then that is what is going, if you can, whoopsie-daisy, it is in there, and then you put it in there, and that is what holds it up and down. So the thing is that when it starts to be rather used, then it will start to wobble around like that. So what I do is I simply take it like that and put my little finger in here, and then I hold it up and press it kind of like that, and then you press it into the armpit, and then you can use it for much longer. Or you could simply take it out like that, because when there is still quite a lot back, because if you see the other one, this is how it starts, and this is kind of like after a year's time, I think. You can just hold it in your hands, but when it is wet, it is not that easy to hold onto, because it will slip and slide. So yes, if you would like to see more of this sort of videos, please subscribe, hit the bell, and do all the things you must do in order to be notified when I upload more of this sort of videos. Thank you for watching. See you. Bye.